Hello, abnormal family. Good to see everybody. Hope everybody's doing good today. Have the day with your family. I hope it's been great for you guys. I've got another encounter for you guys. We're going to jump into it. I'm a 30-year-old man who has lived in Texas my entire life. I've had weird things happen to me ever since I was a little boy. But this encounter is about something that happened to me at the beginning of 2021, something that changed my life, and something I will never forget. My divorce was coming to a completion as I sat in my new home, 2 acres in central Texas, on land, with half of it going into the surrounding woods. We had neighbors, but the property we bought was on the outskirts of a friend's land and was around a half a mile to the nearest one. My home is around half an acre from the edge, and I often enjoyed sitting on my porch and watching deer with my new loves, my girlfriend, and our 1 year old puppy. One night, after a nice home cooked meal, my girlfriend smiled at me, causing me to swell with a newfound happiness I had forgotten even existed. We watched some YouTube and got ready for bed. I let our dog out one last time before stretching and putting some dishes into the sink. But as I did, something caught my eye at the window above the sink. A set of red dots at the fence line. They almost looked like two laser pointers pointing a few inches apart into the bushes. I shook it off, thinking my mind was playing tricks on me. I work nights usually and pass the time at work by listening to your channel, Mike. So I figured it was just the usual mind racing back to the stories. I looked at the time and realized our fur baby had been outside for about 20 minutes, which for her was odd because now she had already come to the door, usually shrugging. I sat down and decided to wait for her to let me know when she was ready to come inside. I dozed off, but uh, started, and then I awoke when I heard a yipping sound. Slightly confused about where I was, I looked at the time and realized it had been an hour and a half since I let her out. I heard the yip again and thought maybe coyotes were outside in the woods again, and maybe she had gone to investigate. I started to get worried. I strapped my pump action 12 gauge on my back and I walked out the front door calling to her to come inside. But I got no reply. Even more worried, I grabbed my inspection light, which was a headlamp rated at 720 lumens I use. And for anyone who is familiar with these lights knows it's really bright. I turned it on, pumped my shotgun before I walked towards where the yipping was coming from. Around 15 feet from the house, what I saw horrified me. There was a small splatter of blood in the grass. Scared and angry at whatever had happened to my pup, I called her again, louder, and began following the trail of blood. I heard something run behind me, something fast, something heavy. I whipped around, gun pointed high, but didn't see anything. From the direction I had just been looking, a moment before I heard a deep laugh and turned slowly back to the spot. I could tell it was tall. Even hunched over, it was around 6 feet off the ground. I'm only around 5'7", so this thing was massive. I kept my gun trained on it, even though I was horrified as I watched it stare at me. It raised its clawed hand up at me, and what it was holding. I stumbled and almost dropped my 12 gauge as I realized it was my dog, Mackenzie. Her limp, lifeless body dripping blood down its arm and face. My face got so hot. I was so sick. It's a face that haunts my nightmares to this day that I was looking into. It was a skull crossed between a wolf and a deer. In fact, it had not antlers but stubs, but they were more like jagged tree branches almost from its head and down its shoulders and spine. Angry at whatever this was for taking one of my family from me, I took 2 steps forward and put a slug into it, pumped it again, not remembering I had already pumped it, ejecting a shell out, hitting the ground, and I unloaded the other 2 rounds into it. Both rounds hit and splattered black goo on the tree behind it. It screeched and leaped 15 feet into the nearest pine tree. It looked down on me, and I felt goosebumps like it was telling me I had just messed up. I picked the bullet up off the ground that I'd already put, or I accidentally had jacked out of the ground, and put another one into it. I uttered a very impolite word and started to run backwards, never lowering the gun out of fear. That's when it came at me. Yes, it did. It jumped down, running straight at me like a hound out of hell. Cursing again, I pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. I reached into my pocket and I grabbed another round, slammed it into the gun, fired again, missed it, The bullet hit the ground, terrified but unable to do anything. I tried to outrun it, the remaining 20 feet to my door. I looked up, and in my terror I realized there was another one. It cocked its head at me and opened its mouth, huge, jagged teeth dripping with saliva and dried remains of past victims, I would guess. It dropped down, arms on either side where I had fallen, and began to laugh into my face, smiling. It was an eerie sound, but here's the weirdest damn thing. The horns were not attached to him permanently. The horns were on a headdress of a deer. How do I know this? The headdress fell off. What was under the headdress, Mike? You really want to know? I'll tell you, I seen it with my own eyes. It was an effing werewolf wearing the headdress of a damn deer. But it seemed to come from everywhere but nowhere. I could feel its rancid breath as it lowered, and I began to realize that this was going to be it for me. I tried to push it away and flatten myself to the ground further, but it didn't do any good. It continued lowering slowly, tortuously, almost as though it was enjoying eking out every ounce of fear that it could. Closing my eyes tight, I waited for it to sink its teeth into me. When I felt its weight lift off of me, and a loud crash. The one had leapt onto it, and they were slashing and ripping each other, now fighting each other, which sounded like a vicious dog fight. Why had they attacked each other? I tried to dart the rest of the way to the door, but didn't do any good. They realized I was escaping and turned to me and screeched together in a sound that made me feel as though my head was going to split in two. I made it to the front step and fell, feeling paralyzed. They both shared and looked back at me when the front door burst open. My girlfriend was standing there with a Taurus 9mm that I had gotten her for her birthday. She fired 2 shots at each one of them. I know one hit because I saw it hit the chest. They jumped back again and screamed. I tried to tell her to get back into the house, that a 12-gauge slug wasn't doing any good. But to my amazement, they started to back off. Bleeding from small wounds it caused wasn't healing like the ones it had caused earlier. Not thinking of what could cause this, I had no idea what had caused this, but they were dripping blood and they were hurt. They were limping, and they ran off into the woods. I called the game warden. The game warden, sheriff's department, and state police all arrived at our home. After further inspection, they took samples of the black goo that was now everywhere. They took us to the hospital, cleaned our wounds, took a report, and we later found out that what we were attacked by was 2 large wolves, they said, that were hunting in our backyard. That is total BS, Mike. We saw it, me and her. I asked them about the findings of the black goo they took and what it was. It came back conclusive to a wolf's blood. I told them how could it be a wolf's blood when it was black? Wolves don't have black blood. They told us that it wasn't black. It was just nighttime outside, and the dark blood appeared to be black. They try to make you truly feel like you're crazy when you know what happened. We have now moved out of that house and live in the city that we never wanted the city life at all. But we feel so much better in our apartment where we're safe from those woods and those wolves that don't have black blood. An aggravated viewer, Mike, that knows exactly what it feels like to have it covered up. Yeah, I understand the frustration. I hear it a lot. And it's weird to me they were wearing deer heads. And, that is kind of weird. That's really got me thinking. I don't know why they would wear deer heads like that and horns. It's kind of weird. What do you all think? Let me know, guys. Why do you think they would wear deer heads like that, like a cape with the horns on it? Until next time, guys, keep your head on a swivel. Don't be something's dinner. And we will see you on the next one. Like, share, and subscribe if you're not, guys. We would appreciate it. Good night.